I met this guy named Matt one summer night when I was out at a bar with some friends. It was a big group hangout, one of those nights where you're not really expecting anything special. Just a bunch of people watching the Cubs game, sipping drinks, joking around. Matt and I ended up next to each other at the bar, vibing over the game, and kind of naturally clicked. My friends had started drifting off into different corners of the place, chatting or dancing or whatever, so it ended up being mostly just me and Matt talking. I'd always wanted to see the Grand Canyon, so it wasn't a hard sell. I checked with work, made sure I could get the time off, and said yes. I did my usual, asked Tyler and a few other people if they wanted to come too. As I was walking to the bathroom, I heard this creak, like someone putting pressure on an old floorboard. I glanced around, but didn't see anything in the dim light. After I finished in the bathroom, I heard the soft click of a door closing. I figured it was Matt's room. Out of curiosity, I tried the door. It was locked. I knocked. No answer. Whatever, I went back to bed. But they had their usual excuses. Can't take off. Need to save money. Blah, blah, blah. Matt said he was planning to go solo anyway, which I found a little odd, like, who goes on a trip like that alone? But he didn't seem weird about it. His Instagram made it look like he had plenty of friends. I figured maybe his usual crew just couldn't make it either. It wasn't like he mingled with any of them. Honestly, I don't even think he learned any of their names. When we landed in Phoenix, it was already dark. I noticed Matt walking through the living room to grab some water. Nothing weird. I rolled over and went back to sleep. The next morning, he woke me up early, all excited to hit the trails. The sun was out, skies were clear, and it was already hot. We headed straight to the Grand Canyon. I don't think I ever really understood how huge that place is until we were standing at the edge. We ended up hiking the Bright Angel Trail, which kicked my ass. Matt clearly liked his booze. But somehow, I ended up way drunker than him. I was dripping in sweat, struggling to keep up, while Matt looked like he'd just stepped out of a fitness ad. I just know we Ubered back because we couldn't drive. And Matt was blasting music back at the Airbnb. We took breaks, snapped a ton of pictures, some of them genuinely stunning, and eventually made our way back to the car. I was starving. I never thought to double-check that detail. We hit a deli on the way back, then drove all the way to Phoenix, where we took naps before heading out to explore the city and, naturally, bar hop. And man, did we drink. I barely remember parts of that night. I plugged in my phone beside the couch and knocked out hard. Matt rented a car, and we hit up a fast food spot and grabbed some beer on the way to the Airbnb. It was pretty late by the time we arrived, and that's when I noticed something kind of odd. The Airbnb only had one bed. I asked him about it, and he just casually pointed to the couch I was sitting on, saying it was a pullout. Then he added, "Relax, I'm not even charging you for the place." Fair enough, I thought. Free couch? I couldn't complain. I pulled it out, threw on the sheets, and crashed. It was actually more comfortable than I expected. But we got along well enough that we exchanged Instagrams before parting ways. I noticed he had a pretty solid follower count, and his feed gave off that classic 20-something energy travel, parties, staying active, all that stuff. Normal, right? Now look, I've met plenty of people at bars before. When two guys bro out over a drink and swap socials, it almost never goes anywhere. You always say something like, "Yo, let's link up sometime." But let's be real, come morning, sober reality kicks in, and you forget all about it. That is why it caught me off guard when I actually ran into Matt again the next night. I was out at this outdoor bar on the water for my buddy Tyler's birthday. The place was lively birthday songs, people laughing, drinks going around. I even posted a quick story on Instagram, just a short clip of us singing to Tyler. A little while later, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and it's Matt. He gave me a casual, "What's up?" did the whole friendly dap-up thing, and said this was his favorite spot on Saturdays. I mean, small world, I thought. I introduced him to my group, kind of played it off like, "You guys remember Matt?" even though they barely saw him the night before. Still, everyone was drinking and in good spirits, so it was all cool. That night turned into a bit of a blur. Matt hung around for a while, got along with people fine enough, and seemed like a decent guy. A bit of a party dude, maybe, but nothing that raised alarms. The next time I saw him, he invited me to go golfing. Now, I'm terrible at golf, but I've always wanted to get better at it. So I said yes. I'm a super light sleeper like. The sound of someone opening a bag of chips would do it. It was a last-minute Sunday morning kind of thing, just him and me. I tried roping in a couple of my buddies, but they were all either too hungover or just didn't want to get up early. So it ended up being the two of us. It was 9 holes, 2 hours, pretty chill. Afterward, we grabbed some food, talked a bit more, and then I just went home to relax before the work week kicked off. Still, nothing felt off. It all just seemed like a new friend I happened to click with, who liked some of the same stuff I did. Not long after that, Matt hit me up again, this time with something bigger. He invited me on a hiking trip out to Arizona. We flew out on August 15th and were scheduled to return on the 18th. In the middle of the night, I stirred awake. I woke up sometime in the middle of the night, again parched, with a bladder about to burst. But when I woke up the next morning, something was ... off. The first thing I noticed that morning, besides the pounding in my skull, was my phone. I always leave it plugged in overnight, and I clearly remembered laying it on the floor next to the couch before I crashed. But now, it was on the table, sitting upright, unplugged. I stared at it for a minute, trying to remember if I'd moved it. But no, I didn't. I was way too drunk. Still, I brushed it off. Figured maybe in my blackout state, I decided to move it for some dumb reason. We didn't do any hiking that day. I would have puked 10 minutes in. We spent the day Ubering around, checking out neighborhoods, stopping at little scenic spots, eventually ending up at the botanical gardens. I told Matt I wasn't really feeling the drinks that night, but he talked me into it anyway. I don't know how, but the guy had a way of making everything sound like a chill idea. And wouldn't you know it, it turned into another all-out drink fest. We got back to the Airbnb somewhere around 1 or 2 in the morning. That's when Matt, out of nowhere, insisted I take the bed for the night. He said it was only fair, since I'd taken the couch 2 nights in a row. I didn't argue. I grabbed my bag, tossed it into his room, and shut the door behind me. I didn't even bother locking it. It had one of those doorknobs with a lock you could probably pick with a bobby pin or butter knife if you really wanted to. Still, I felt fine. I mean, I was still a little drunk, tired, and just wanted to crash. But then, sometime in the night, I don't even know how long after I'd fallen asleep, I woke up again. It's weird when that happens. Sometimes your body just knows something's wrong before your brain does. Again, I sat up in bed, trying to piece together what had woken me. And then I noticed it, my phone was missing. He was lying on the floor, face down, sprawled out on the far side of the bed. I'd had it plugged in beside the bed, and I remember placing it on the mattress next to me. I yelled, like, full-on shouted, "What are you doing?" Now, the charging cord was just dangling toward the floor, empty. My stomach dropped. I leaned over the side of the bed, looking down, and that's when I saw him. Matt, the side farthest from the door. He sat up slowly, blinking like he'd just woken from a coma, acting all confused. And then came the phone. I asked him where my phone was. Calculated. He acted clueless. He mumbled something about being so blacked out that he must have stumbled into the room to sleep, and remembered I was in the bed and just passed out on the floor instead. But that didn't make sense. He was on the far side of the bed. No hesitation. If he had just wandered in and flopped down, he wouldn't have ended up there. I wasn't seeing the Matt I thought I'd met at the bar. He would have landed near the door, told me maybe I should check under the bed. So I did, and of course, he instantly said, "Bro, here it is," and pulled it out like he just stumbled on some hidden treasure. I just stared at him. Something about him in that moment looked different. More like that feeling you get when someone's watching you. This version of him, this one felt cold. I screamed at him to get out. I mean full volume. Get the hell out of here yelling. I told him I'd just go back to sleeping on the couch, but he insisted he would. He got up, left the room, and I locked the door the moment it closed. That whole thing with the phone, it didn't sit right with me. I knew he'd taken it. There's no way it just fell under the bed. Not when I'd had it plugged in and resting next to me. Still, I was groggy and still a little drunk, so I managed to fall back asleep. I wish I could say that was the end of it. But it wasn't. I woke up again, this time with a jolt. It wasn't a sound exactly. My eyes adjusted to the darkness, and I realized I wasn't alone. At the foot of the bed, silhouetted against the faint glow of the hallway light, stood Matt, just standing there. Couldn't think. Just sat there in the terminal, trying to process what had just happened. I couldn't see his expression, just the outline of him, completely still. Then, without saying a word, he sat down at the foot of the bed and started rubbing my foot. That's when I lost it. But he didn't move. I had to physically get out of bed, grab him by the arm, and shove him out the door. He didn't resist, didn't say a word, just let it happen. I slammed the door shut behind him, heart pounding, and locked it again. I stood there for a second, just trying to catch my breath, trying to understand what the hell was happening. Then I started packing. Threw my clothes in my bag, swept up my toiletries, my chargers, everything. The entire time, Matt just sat there on the couch in the living room, upright, watching me. He didn't speak. He didn't move, just stared. Like some weird NPC from a video game who glitched out and lost all sense of normal behavior. It was easily the most unsettling moment of my life. I ordered an Uber to the airport. I wasn't staying another second in that Airbnb. He didn't stop me. He didn't even say goodbye. I left as the sun was starting to rise, half drunk, exhausted, and completely shaken. I got to the airport hours early. Couldn't sleep. I even paid extra like $35 to switch my seat on the plane so I wouldn't have to sit next to him. I kept my eyes glued to the window the whole time people were boarding, just to avoid making eye contact. It was only later that day after I'd gotten some food, and calmed down a little, that I finally told my friends. I told my friends everything, piece by piece. Some of them weren't even surprised. A couple of them were like, "See? I told you that dude gave off weird vibes." And then it hit me both times we'd seen Matt out in public. He was alone. That second night at the outdoor bar, I'd posted a story on Instagram. What if he saw it and showed up just because he knew where I was? That started to really mess with me. It felt like stalker behavior. I blocked his number and Instagram right away, but before I did, I went back to one of his old posts where he was in a group photo. There were 3 other guys in the pic, but none of them were tagged. I started scrolling through the comments and found one from someone who looked like he might have been one of the guys in the picture. I clicked through to his profile and saw Matt wasn't following him, and he wasn't following Matt either. That was weird, right? If they were close enough to be in a group pic together, they'd follow each other. On a gut instinct, I DM'd the guy and asked if he still kept in touch with Matt. He replied within 10 minutes, and I'll never forget what he said. "Nah, guy's a freak. Run away." And then he told me his own story. Apparently, he and a couple of other guys had been friends with Matt for a while, but things got uncomfortable. Too many red flags. Weird behavior. Moments that felt invasive, manipulative, unsettling. All of them eventually had to cut him off. One guy even untagged himself from that photo, but couldn't get Matt to take it down. The guy I messaged wasn't even shocked when I explained what happened in Arizona. His response was simple and chilling. Guy should be in jail. That line stuck with me. Because here I was thinking I just made a new buddy, someone who liked sports, hiking, and beers. But in reality, I was traveling across the country with a stranger who turned out to be a dangerous predator. And what keeps bothering me, even now, isn't he just the foot thing, or the late night staring, or him lying on the floor near the bed. It's the phone. He tried to get into my phone, twice. And I don't know why. Was he trying to access something? Steal something? Read my messages? Dig into my accounts? I'll never know. And that's what's so disturbing about it. That sense of being violated without even knowing how deep it went. I think about it way more than I want to admit. I still double-check my phone before I go to sleep. I still hesitate before sharing my location on socials. It is crazy how someone can come off so normal, just a chill guy at a bar talking about the Cubs, and turn out to be something else entirely. You hear stories like this and think, nah, I'd never be that guy who gets caught up in something sketchy like that. But it happens fast. It's subtle. One step at a time until you re-alone in a strange place with someone you barely know. And your instincts are screaming at you while your brain is still catching up. I got lucky. I got out. But every so often, I still wake up wondering what would have happened if I hadn't.